Romance books I highly recommend for all of my Christian girlies. If you're looking for books that don't have spice, you are in the right place because we don't do that kind of stuff here. Here we love Jesus, we pray for each other, we do Bible studies, and we read books that don't have spice because we have convictions.
In a little corner of TikTok is Booktok, and in a little corner of Booktok is Christian Booktok, where instead of fairy smut and spicy reads, you can find a generous helping of shame and guilt. Hi friends, I'm Lane and I've been reviewing Christian books and deconstruction fiction on this channel. But this week I'm reviewing TikToks, and these girlies are having a different reading experience. They feel convicted. I don't know why I said girlies. I'm not going to do that again.
Hey guys, I hope that you guys don't take this the wrong way or take this ugly in any way. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I am transitioning my book talk to a clean book talk, and so you'll notice that my books are all turned around until I can have them replaced with cleaner books. But also, I'm not going to be giving you guys spicy book recommendations.
Just in general, and hopefully help you to understand that you're not alone in it. If you are not a Christian and you are not having this conviction, this probably seems so incredibly silly to you, but to me this is a really big deal, and I will always choose to follow Jesus, but it is not always an easy decision.
This one says Matthew 5:30. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. And so this woman is emptying her bookshelves. I don't know if she's leaving any books behind, but despite the undercurrent of judgment, these are mostly Christian women who love fiction and crave more. And I'm happy that they're reading. Reading is good, and recommending stories other people will read is lovely. So even though I'm here to be critical, I do want to start with a baseline that I think it's fine to read what you enjoy. And I definitely think it's okay to censor yourself from content you don't want. That's what content warnings are for. There's going to be one later in this video. Watch out for it. The Christian Booktok community mostly recommends books that are clean, which means no sexual content, also called no spice. What is spice? Sexual scenes in books. Why do people want to read that? Most of the time it's a good story that throws those scenes in the book. I'm old school and the books I read don't have that. Some of the recommendations include stories that are explicitly Christian, even fantasy stories where Jesus plays a role, but a lot of the stories are Christian approved rather than Christ focused. And I found those standards strange. It typically focuses on a lack of sexual content and very little on stories about redemption, renewal, or flourishing. Sure, most of these are romance, so there is a happily ever after, but I found the deeper meaning in these stories to be lacking. We'll get back to that. This video has a girl coming to God. She says, "Hey God, look at all the books I've read lately. I can't believe I was able to make time to read them all. Aren't you proud of me?" And she looks really happy. The God character says, "Yes, that's great. I'm proud of you. Have you made time to read this one?" And holds up the Bible. And the girl gets the Bible and she's looking at it and feeling bad and sad, and she's not excited about it.
You're just a character.
Am I?
Okay, this video, a woman's reading a spicy book. She's cozy. She's really excited about it. It feels so real to her. She says, "You're not real." And then she feels a hand on her shoulder. But it's not the hand of the spicy male character. It's the hand of Jesus. She is filled with guilt. She throws her book down on the floor. She thinks about a Bible verse, which I've pulled up the full version of. "No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out, so you can endure it." 1 Corinthians 10:13. So there's some clarity that reading spicy books is a sin, it's temptation, you need to flee it. But also it's paired with this meme about how it's not even real, the characters are fictional. I'm still a little confused. Rather than seeing God and Jesus be a source of joy and hope in their lives, we just see guilt. The desire to avoid spice is an aspect of purity culture. I thought we were getting a break from that, but maybe not. If you were a teen in the early O's, it was an age of purity rings, promises and pledges, courtship, and a lot of shame and guilt. They were trying to follow the Bible, which says, flee from sexual immorality. 1 Corinthians 6:18a. But the whole thing fundamentally didn't work. Most of the people who promised they were saving sex for marriage didn't, and a lot of folks, mostly women, who did wait for marriage found other problems. After cutting themselves off from many sexual thoughts, it was really hard to flip the switch and start being an enthusiastic sexual partner, especially when many churches were telling them they should always say yes to their husbands and be joyfully available. Sex went from a sin to an obligation after a wedding ceremony. It's not very romantic, is it? Personally, I would have enjoyed no spice recommendations as a teen because I was quite happy living an asexual existence. I'm sorry I was pretty judgmental of people living a different experience than I was. I'm not getting personal with this, but when I did marry, I had a wake-up call that I didn't have all the answers and that trying to do everything right didn't work out the way I thought it would. It also didn't work for the author of I Kissed Dating Goodbye, a veritable Bible to the purity culture crowd in my teen years. He went on an apology tour in 2016, and then he and his wife divorced in 2019. I also think they both left their faith. I haven't kept up with that story. It's a real bummer. Honestly, I feel sorry for people who go viral or get famous when they're really young. Sometimes it's nice to forget or at least move on from that thing you were obsessed with when you were like 22. I can't overemphasize how much purity culture is rooted in shame rather than anything positive. I remember going to church around that time, and the pastor and his wife felt this need to confess sexual sin from back when they were dating years ago. They said they didn't go all the way, but they did things they regret and they hoped others would do better. They made sad faces. Even then I thought, I don't care what you did years ago. Shouldn't you feel forgiven by now? Now, I'm sure saving sex for marriage was really lovely for some folks. I'm not telling you what to do. I do question the idea that spicy books will make you so horny that you break your commitment to your partner. I was guessing as I scrolled through these videos that they were targeted at single women. But no, even married women are supposed to avoid spice. Okay, this video, we've got another lady packing up her books. She's got big stacks on her bed and maybe she's putting them in a box or something. It says, there will be a pull on your heart when you get married to stop reading smut. It's important you listen to that voice. She doesn't say why. Does it count as cheating to her? Does lusting after fictional characters make your partner unappealing? Do married women still need to be asexual? Is sex only good and godly if you don't desire it? Do you please God most when you don't have agency? They don't ever seem to explain what the problem is. Sometimes people who've left Christianity are better at explaining this. I've got a video clip from Unreligiously. I will link the channel below. She's talking about how normal sexual feelings get interpreted as sin. I'm also linking some better resources about purity culture.
Something that is a healthy part of their development, a sign that they're going through puberty. Instead, it's they're taught really that this is a character flaw of theirs, that it's a sign that there's something wrong with them. And it does cause a lot of issues because when you come from an evangelical Christian background, obviously a lot of different groups of people are anti, viewing adult content, and I can see definitely why people would have reservations about that or think that that it's immoral, right? I can see some of the harms of the industry because they're not allowed to have any outlet for this. They're not allowed to read books. They're not allowed to fantasize because that would be considered sinning in your thought life, which is biblically the same thing as committing adultery. You're really not allowed to engage with it in any way, which I would argue actually makes it come up more, makes it more upsetting, makes it something that you ruminate on even more often.
A lot of these videos have replacement suggestions. Love this, but you feel too convicted about the spice? Try this instead. This video says loved Akotar, but felt conviction from all the smut, and the music builds and she slaps down the book that she's recommending. I haven't read this one yet, but maybe I'll get around to it later.
Let's talk about some more authors to add to your TBR who will give you all the romantic fun. We're talking enemies to lovers, hockey romance, cowboys, anything you want it, they got it. They just don't have the spice.
All dark romance, all extremely spicy. Honestly, can't believe that I ever read this. Obviously, it was before I was really convicted and sanctified, but would not pick this up. Okay, this is kind of controversial. I actually love the Fourth Wing series so much, and I've still continued to read it as I've gotten closer to the Lord, but I do skip over the spice scenes in the books because I love the other parts of the book so much that I just cannot stop reading it. If there's ever any spice scenes, I just skip through it and skip to the next chapter usually.
Christian ladies are trying not to read the books that everyone else is reading on Booktok. Again, no judgment. I'm not very interested in the popular books myself, although I've been told I would get more views over here on BookTube if I would just review something popular. It could be a fun creative challenge to recreate the thrill of a bestseller, but take out the spice and add in Jesus, right? But that doesn't seem to work. The result comes out hollow. Reads with Rachel did a wonderful video explaining the problem with a lot of Christian fiction.
Stories, which are supposed to be, should be original, should have some element of originality, as a vehicle for content control and teaching and preaching rather than art. And so when fantasy books become sanitized echoes of secular books, secular trends, readers are going to start picking up on the lack of authenticity, like me finding out that, such and such song is actually a ripoff of the original, which was not a Christian song. That was devastating in my youth. So works start feeling derivative because they are literally derivative, borrowing shells of fantasy and dystopian without embracing the spirit and the humanity of these stories, the individual humanity of these stories. And the constraints imposed by religious belief and the expectations of behavior that come with that are weakening these stories, but they feel like that's their strength.
It's all part of black and white thinking. A Christian book is a good book. A sexless book is a good book. A sexless dating relationship is a good relationship. I really did used to think that everyone having sex with their partner had a bad relationship, and everyone abstaining had a good relationship. In reality, there's hundreds of reasons why one relationship might be healthy or unhealthy, not just that one factor. Same thing for books. I have read a couple of the clean books these folks have recommended to see if I like them. I want to like them. The theme I've been noticing so far is that their editors are too nice. It's like authors can ramble on a lot or toss in some really unrealistic drama, and it doesn't matter because it's Christian, so it must be good. There's no reason to strive for excellence. But that'll be a different video. My final problem is that none of this performative purity is actually true. Not all of these books are clean. This one says, point of view. You want to read romantasy without sacrificing your faith. No smut, no lust, no romanticizing death and the devil. The first fantasy book I read from Christian Booktok is a Rebecca Ross book. I don't want to do a full review. The book had some oddities, but there was a good story in there. Yet, I can't help but get hung up on the romance choice. The character is falling in love with her teacher. The teacher she's had since she was 14 and actually met at age 11. So it's like dating your middle school teacher. And yes, there was no spice. And we readers don't start the story until she's almost 18. But what? Why? There was no reason to write a grooming backstory. Why would you do that? And why wouldn't Christian readers immediately reject that? Next, Frank Peretti books from the 80s are trending again.
This first book is This Present Darkness. Okay, now the cover is not giving, but I'm telling you, this book literally changed my prayer life. It changed the way that I looked at spiritual warfare in my life, and it helped me to actually fight spiritual warfare in my life. It's also Christian fiction, which is such a slay, and it starts out as pretty slow, but the more you read it, the more you get into it, you're like not gonna want to put it down. And again, if you can get past the cover, like you're gonna fall in love with it.
People like his books. because they have demonic content. It's exciting, it's trendy. Yes, the demons are bad and the Christian characters banish them, but readers are reading it for the thrill. And that's a good way to sneak a lot of harmful, conservative content into it. I'll share a D.L. Mayfield link in the description, but a reoccurring theme in This Present Darkness is that demons cause women to make false assault reports against godly men who are community leaders. Think about that for a minute. We've had a lot of years now to see how that kind of thinking impacts the real world, to see how women are disbelieved and men in power stay in power. The last book I have to talk about, and I've been delaying this. I really hate this, and I want to do it. Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers, published in 1991. By far, this is the most popular book on Christian Booktok right now. It's recommended over and over again. It shows up in the comments. The author's other books are also constantly promoted. But this is a bad book. It may be the worst book. Other smarter people have done good reviews, so I'll have links below. But here is my 5-minute summary of this really upsetting book, and a couple thoughts on why Christians like it or think it's good. In the 1850s, Gold Rush, California, Christians used to love historical fiction, but I think Old West fiction isn't as popular now as it used to be. Anyway, a young woman called Angel is a sex worker in a small town brothel. A man named Michael Hosea hears God's voice tell him to marry her, so he starts pursuing her, even though he is disgusted by her so-called sin. He chastely visits her over and over, but she continually refuses his marriage proposals. Meanwhile, she's becoming desperate and suicidal in her hopeless life, and she goads her bodyguard into attacking her. Michael comes back while she is unconscious and barely functioning. He pays the brothel madam to take her, and while she is conscious but barely coherent, she sort of agrees to marry him. So he gets a pastor who doesn't mind performing wedding rites on a sleeping, beaten woman, and Michael takes her home to the farm. It's romantic, right? I know this part sounds unbelievable, so I brought the quotes along as evidence. Before we get into the content of this book, we've got some content notes. Sex trafficking, both adults and children, sexual assault, forced marriage, suicide attempt, physical abuse, and honestly, other things I've probably forgotten. I don't recommend it, but think about that before you read it. So Angel starts to wake up a little bit from being totally knocked out. Angel wanted the darkness. She didn't want to feel anything ever again, but someone was there, so close she could feel the warmth of his breath. "I'm going to take you home with me," the gentle voice said. "You want to take her home? Fine, I'll gift wrap her," the brothel madam said, "but you're going to pay first." "You can have your gold," came the voice that had pulled her from the darkness. But now it was hard, angry. Had she done something wrong again? "But get out of here before I do something I'll regret." The door slammed. Pain exploded in Angel's head, and she groaned. She could hear two men talking. One of them spoke to her. "I want to marry you before we leave together." "Marry her?" She gave a whimpering laugh. Someone took her hand. She thought it was Lucky at first, but Lucky's hand was soft and small. This one was large and hard, the skin rough with calluses. Just say yes. She would agree to wed Satan himself if it would get her out of the brothel. "Why not?" she managed. She drifted on a sea of pain and quiet voices. She felt someone slip a ring on her finger. Her head was raised gently, and she was given something bitter to drink. Lucky took her hand. "They're rigging his wagon so he can take you home with him. You'll sleep all the way with the laudanum you drank. You won't feel nothing." She felt Lucky touch her hair. "You're a regular married lady now, Angel." He had a wedding ring on a chain around his neck. He said it belonged to his mother. "His mother, Angel. He put his mother's wedding ring on your finger. Can you hear me, honey?" Angel wanted to ask who she had married, but what did it matter? The pain gradually receded. She was so tired. Maybe she would die after all. It would all be over then. At the farm, she heals, but is still unhappy. Michael waits a while to have sex with her. He wants her to prove that she'll have an emotional connection with him first. When they do have sex, it still seems very iffy to me, but the narrative tries to tell us how pure Michael is for not assaulting her sooner, which is his right as a husband. He also refrains from beating her, even though he thinks about it. Angel runs away several times, is assaulted by other men, returns to the brothel for a while. Michael brings her back a couple times, but she runs away again. Eventually, she builds a good life for herself, helping other women who've escaped sex trafficking. That could have been a happy ending to the story for me, but instead, a family member finds her and tells her that Michael is still waiting for her and still loves her. So she returns to him and apologizes for, basically how she's never good enough for him. They live happily ever after and have kids. Other people probably summarize this book differently than I do. I find that strange. Let's talk about why. I've got 2 contrasting Goodreads reviews. The first says, "This book was well written, but I was disappointed. It just seems to be a regular romance book, with Jesus just kind of tacked on at the end. For being a Christian book, it went into more detail than I would have thought." I assume they mean spicy detail. The first 3/4 of the book is Michael and Angel, and the only Christian aspect is God telling Michael to marry her and go back to her. He doesn't try to explain God to her or tell her about Jesus. She just somehow hears a voice in the last quarter of the book. In my opinion, it's closer to a smut book than a Christian one. Another person answers a question about, is this a clean read? Other Christians will disagree with me, but yes, this is a clean read. Although I think that clean label is very vague and that it's open to interpretation. There are sex scenes in this book, but they're not descriptive. It's the story of a literal prostitute based on a Bible story about a prostitute. I'm surprised so many are shocked by this. The Bible is a clean read, yet it includes sex, rape, incest, lust, murder, etc., all of which are also found in this novel. The content may make some readers uncomfortable, but that doesn't make it an unclean read. It absolutely does, if words have meaning, which they should. She brings up an important point. One reason people like this book, or at least justify it, is that it's based on the Bible story of Hosea. We forget that many parts of the Bible are X-rated, and even that many stories are not a guide for life. I was very confused the first time, maybe 15 years ago, that someone told me how much they loved Redeeming Love, and that it was based on Hosea. Because I'd read Hosea, and it's not a love story. It's a story that's one part over-the-top drama, and one part sad. God asks Hosea to marry a woman who won't be faithful to him. Hosea endures years of loveless marriage and infidelity. He names his kids oddball names that mean not my child and not my people. It's a very interesting book. It's full of comparison about layers of metaphor, and it's also about frustration. God is calling out God's people for their infidelity to the covenant they made with God. This modern interpretation about God pursuing a person who thinks they have no value and convincing them that they have value could have been a nice story, but it's not the story of Hosea. And it's not even the story of Redeeming Love. In Redeeming Love, Angel has massive self-esteem problems. She thinks she has no value due to being sex trafficked since her childhood. It's not about her being a slut or a harlot or an unfaithful wife. She's just a super broken person. Romance isn't really the solution to that problem. And more obviously, being tricked into marriage and obligated to have sex with her husband isn't a solution either. Yet people say this book made them feel loved by the Lord.
Christian books, I will accept 0 criticism on. These books are 10 out of 10. I am obsessed with, and I would recommend to anyone to help them grow in their faith. I'm in love with these books, and I honestly wish that I read them earlier. The third book is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. This book is a Christian book, but like, it is definitely real and raw. It made me feel so loved by the Lord. It helped me forgive myself for so many of my past mistakes. It helped me receive God's love on a whole nother level. And if I could marry a book character, it would 100% be Michael Hosea.
Hard pass. I'm so baffled by this. It makes me feel like we didn't read the same book. The most charitable perspective I can give on this is that some women see this story as someone doing all the worst things they could do. Sex outside of marriage, cheating on your partner, and yet they're forgiven and loved anyways. Again, it's not actually the plot of the story, but if you can convince yourself it does, I see where that would be comforting in some way. My second point is less charitable. It's a way of reading spice without admitting you're reading spice. People like this book because of the drama, the titillation. Christians can't normally read a book about sex trafficking, sex work, sexual assault, and violence. These are the same reasons why regular book talk is reading fairy smut and spicy mafia romances. Christians judge them for reading those books, but it's okay to read spicy redeeming love because the bad stuff is condemned as sin, and the sinful woman gets humbled and led by a strong man. The book loves traditional gender roles. Angel needs this man to guide her and be firm with her. Angel can't have a happy life unless she's a wife and a mother, and her worth comes from her husband's evaluation of her. Okay, I can't go on much after that. If you're a Christian book talker and you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me. I hope any of this was helpful and not just hurtful for you. And I've saved a sincere recommendation for you. My Christian book talk recommendation is Christy by Catherine Marshall. It was published in 1967. It is a classic. If you are a 90s kid, you may watch the TV series. It's historical, inspired by true stories of the author's mother working as a school teacher in a remote Appalachian village in the 1910s. She lives out her faith as an act of service to people living in extreme poverty with no other access to education. She is sometimes judgmental about their culture and lifestyle, and she also gets called out for that lack of love. She's in a love triangle with the pastor and the non-believer doctor. Some scary and dramatic things happen in the story, yet there's also a lot of heartwarming community. It's so good. Go read it. I also have a spicy recommendation that has no religion in it, if that's your preference. I love basically anything written by Jenny Trout, aka Abigail Barnett. They also do some romantasy books, so be sure to check out The Ogre's Fairy Tale Bride. Jenny is famous on the internet for their critical and detailed review of 50 Shades of Grey. And they always write stories with clear consent in sex communication. That's all for today. Leave me a comment if you have thoughts on Christian book talk, or if there's a book you think I should rate and review. Thanks.